Good afternoon, everyone. There are two things successful people follow. First is taking the leap of faith, and second, grabbing every opportunity that comes your way during the learning process.
Because if you never try, you'll never know what you're worth. Today, we are going to talk about the person who is an entrepreneur, a public speaker, a cricket enthusiast, a content creator, as well as a youth icon, and the founder of Career Keeda. He is none other than Mr. Deepak Pareek.
Mr. Deepak Pareek completed his graduation with BCom Accounting and Finance from St. Xavier College, Kolkata. And since their first idea didn't work that well, they pivoted all their focus on solving the hurdles they encountered in the process. They found out a critical problem that they could have solved and started their journey with the second idea. They had taken a plunge and they were glad that it worked out.
In his second year of graduation, he co-founded Career Keeda along with Mr. Mohit Shaw. Mr. Deepak Pareek has been a TEDx speaker for 3 times in succession.
Career Kida works in the education domain and focuses on providing practical training and skill development courses, something our education system doesn't focus on.
He aims to bridge the gap between what's taught in colleges and what happens in the corporate world. His journey started back in 2015. He knew that the theoretical knowledge imparted in schools and colleges is way different from what happens in the corporate world.
Both of them being first time entrepreneurs, their ideas were fresh and they tried out every marketing strategy that stuck to their mind. Some strategies worked while some didn't, and the journey has been nothing short of a roller coaster ride. Career Kida has received the nomination for top 50 companies in education by Global Forum for Education and Learning. Career Kida was also nominated for India 500 Startup Award 2020. Now, we would like Mr. Deepak Parekh to enlighten us with his insightful words.
Firstly, thank you so much for having me. It has been a lovely afternoon so far. So thank you so much for having me. So starting off with the journey, I think in the introduction, I think everything has already been mentioned, and nothing else that I can add on. But just to give you a quick introduction about myself. So my name is Deepak, and I started with my entrepreneurial journey when I was in my second year of college. Um, and the idea struck as to a lot of people ask, sir, how to find ideas for a startup. And the idea struck was very simple. So I was in my second year, and we were playing bingo in the classroom. And we were getting bored in the classroom, so we didn't we couldn't focus on the class because the class was boring. So we thought, why is that happening? Why are we playing bingo? What is the reason behind us not being able to focus on class? Is it because of the boring lecture? Is it because of the boring professor? Is it because there is actually a problem in the education system? What exactly is the problem? Right. So that's something that happened, and we tried and shifted our focus from bingo to the class, but that couldn't happen, unfortunately. So we kept on playing bingo, but then the larger picture, the bigger picture behind this was, there has to be a bigger picture to it, right? There has to be something that could be done to improve the education system, because then I started looking up the education system and the education, and when I looked up the education system, I found out that it's more or less been the same since the year 1872, right? When Macaulay was there. Since then, it's almost been the same. And since 1872, there has not. I mean, of course, there have been a few changes, but there has not been a radical change that has brought about a revolutionary change in the education system. Even then, it was focusing on rote memorization and theoretical learning. Even today, it is it is the same. Even in colleges, even in schools and college, both in schools and colleges, we are supposed to um, focus on learning stuff and vomiting it in the question in the answer sheets. And that is exactly what's being happening right now as well. So I think in terms of understanding the structure of the education system, that is how we basically came up with the idea. And so that's how it worked for us. Initial, so we named it Career Kida. Fancy name because we thought that everybody has some sort of Kida in them. So we thought, why not have career ka Keeda in us? So that's how the name came up. And frankly, every startup, if you talk to any startup that you speak with, you will have a founder story. You will have how did you meet your co-founder, right? So for me, I'll just touch upon briefly on that because that's important while starting up. Because once you need to have, firstly you need to decide if you want a co-founder or not. But if you decide to have a co-founder, then this is how I usually I met my co-founder. I was attending an award function back in my home city, Calcutta, and luckily enough, I find this very enthusiastic guy. So in every friend group, you will find this one over enthusiastic guy who is enthusiastic about everything in life. He wants to achieve ki chal bhai karte hai, let's do it. है ना? So he is that. So my co-founder was that guy. I saw him. He was pitching his idea. He was pitching his so-called multi-billion-dollar idea to my dad, and I like a very naive 19-year-old kid, second year student, standing there, standing beside my dad, standing in front of this guy who is now my co-founder, and I'm patiently listening to him. कि हाँ चलो ठीक है, कुछ तो बोल रहा है. I'm getting highly impressed, but I'm not understanding anything because I'm a very naive 19-year-old kid, not understanding anything whatsoever. But I'm listening. ठीक है, कुछ तो interesting बोल रहा है, impress हो रहा है. So that happened, and then I walked up to that guy, and I told him, "Hey man, great presentation. Are you looking for a co-founder right now, or are you riding solo?" He said, "I'm riding solo right now, but I'm definitely looking for a co-founder to come on board." And that's when it clicked because his idea was also in the education sector, and I remember I was talking about me getting bored in class and thinking about something that can be done in the education system. So that was something similar. Of course, I didn't have an idea per se. I just had a random thought कि इसमें कुछ कर सकते. But he had a proper idea. So I thought, yeah, let's brainstorm. So we sat together, we brainstormed for like 2, 3, 4 months, and then we finally launched the startup. Right. So the journey began from second year of college, when we thought of the seed of the idea was born, and eventually it started picking off. So initially our idea was, so you must be aware that every school and college already has a career counselor, right? Has a counselor on a contractual basis. So that counselor, even when you guys were in school, you must have understood that there are counselors who are coming to schools, taking sessions and talking about different careers, different sessions, right? And even in college, it mostly happens that there are counselors who are a part of the college. So we did not take care of this very fact, and we thought कि ठीक है, counselors तो होते होंगे, but our main idea was we'll start career counseling people on unconventional choices. So if you are an RJ, if you are a musician, if you are a dancer, if you are a content creator, if you are, say, anything apart from the conventional career choice. So if you are not an engineer or a chartered accountant or whatever that is conventional, we will not focus on that because there's already a lot of information about that, but not a lot of information is available about these unconventional career choices. So what we thought is we'll get a faculty from that particular field and let him or her take the session on behalf of us. We'll take a cut, he'll take the cut, and then both of us are happy. So that was the entire plan of the startup. After 1.5 years, it miserably failed because we thought कि यार ठीक है, but then we realized that every school and college already has a counselor. So there's no need of a startup that bridges the gap between both of them because there's already no gap. So what kind of gap are you filling here, right? So that's where we thought that this idea will not work. We need to pivot to a completely different idea. So startups is all about. So point number one is startups is all about fixing a problem. If you are doing, and that is why it is different from a traditional business. If I'm selling a particular, say, if I'm selling this water bottle, right? Selling this water bottle normally could just be like, it could be a traditional business where I'm manufacturing this bottle in my factory and distributing it across. It could be in India, it could be in China, it could be worldwide. But if I add a particular chip here, right, which tracks my progress, which tracks that, okay, I am whenever I'm running this much kilometers or this much miles. I'm burning say 100 calories or 200 calories every single day, right? It tells me how much to run, how much not to run, calculates my average speed, something of that sort, which solves a particular problem. Then that becomes a startup, and that eventually becomes eligible to be called as a startup because that's solving a problem, right? So that's where we thought, yeah, we have to make a pivot, because after 1.5 years of operation, after fighting with my parents to start up and not go for a 9 to 5 traditional job, I can't be sitting here and say that I have failed. Now I cannot. Now I have to go back to my 9 to 5. That's not what I could have done. So I had to have a way out, and I had to do something that could be a sustainable product that could work for a very long time. So we made the pivot. Now, how did we make the pivot? We then realized that, so both of us are commerce students. Both me and my co-founder are commerce students, right? And because we come from Calcutta, both of us come from Calcutta, we know that the traditional career option for a commerce student in Calcutta happens to be BCom plus CA, BCom plus Chartered Accountancy. It happens to be that. तो आप किसी भी कोई भी कॉमर्स स्टूडेंट से पूछ लो, वो या तो सीए कर रहा होगा या सीए करके छोड़ दिया होगा. 99% of the students that I have come across either have done CA or try किया, नहीं हुआ, छोड़ दिया. 99% of the commerce Calcutta students. CA/CS, which is company secretaryship, not computer science. You would understand computer science, but it's company secretaryship. So I think that happened, and so because we understood the CA/CS market really well, we understood that there is a major gap there. Now, what the gap was? The gap was that between what is being taught in the CA/CS curriculum and what actually happens when the person becomes a chartered accountant or a company secretary, there's a lot of difference, right? The person who is doing that particular course does not have the idea of what he's signing up for in terms of the work culture, in terms of what is the kind of work that he's signing up for. The traditional methods are, people know that, okay, he as a CA, you are required to audit, or you're required to file taxes, right? But there's a lot of things. You can enter into merchant banking. You can enter into investment banking, right? You can enter into any territory whatsoever. You can also sign up as a consultant, business consultant, right? So people are not aware of that. People just sign up because A, you're in college, so you are supposed to do what others are doing. That is why you sign up for that course. That is the general notion, right? So we found out that there's a huge gap between what is being taught in the curriculum and what really happens in the work culture. Because honestly speaking, let me tell you one. Okay, let me give you an example. So for example, Amol is an employer, okay? And Om and Nikhil are the two people who are his prospective employees. They come for an interview, okay? Just an example to understand the situation really better. So Amol employer है, Amol is the boss, Amol is the employer, Amol अपने employer seat पे बैठा है एकदम अच्छे से, and Om and Nikhil are the two prospective employees of his firm. Amol has one vacancy. That's the trick. Amol has one vacancy. Amol does not have two vacancies. Even if you two are extremely powerful enough and credible enough for that particular job, you will still, one of you will get the job, one of you will be rejected. Now let me give two examples. One example, right? Nikhil is candidate one, who has basic marks in his college, who does not have excellent marks, who has basic marks, who's got average marks, like 60, 70, that's it. Not excellent marks, average marks है. But इस बंदे के पास practical knowledge है, domain knowledge है, skills है. Those skills, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, अच्छे से जानता है. He's a pro at it, right? He knows the basics of what he's signing up for. So if the opening is for, say, marketing, for example, he knows how to use Canva. He knows how to use social media marketing. He knows the basics of how SEO works, right? ये सब basic practical skills है that he's aware of, right? And he's got the knowledge of how the industry works. Because just giving an example, marketing is solely based on consumer psychology, if you come to think of it, what the consumer thinks, if you understand that, you can base your ads and run your products on the basis of what the consumer is thinking, right? So coming back to the example, so Nikhil has average marks, but has the practical domain knowledge. On the other hand, Om has excellent marks. He's got 95% marks in his class 12 board exams. He's got 80, 85, 90% marks in his college exams, which I haven't seen though, but for a very long time. But I'm assuming he's got excellent marks in his college exams and everything. But does not have any knowledge about how the industry works. Does not have any knowledge about does not have any practical knowledge whatsoever, right? Assuming all other factors are constant, Amol Bhai Sahab is the employer. Who would you employ? Candidate 1 or candidate 2? Nikhil or Om?
निखिल.
अभी ये मत सोचो कि ये मेरा दोस्त है, ये कुछ नहीं है, अभी एक हाइपोथेटिकल सिचुएशन है, तो कोई भी बुरा नहीं मानेगा, डोंट वरी.
I would go with Nikhil.
Nikhil, and the primary reason being?
एक all-rounder बोल सकता है. Like he knows everything, right? Like marks are not everything.
Right. So the point that Amol is trying to make, or any employer would, if even if Om was the employer or even if Nikhil was the employer, chances are he would pick the candidate with, even if he's got average marks, but if he's got the understanding of how work is done, that's more important. Because when you go to a particular job structure, the employer will spend or invest 6 to 8 months of his time in making you understand how work is done, right? If you go to a traditional CA firm, the peon knows much more work than the freshers there. Why is that so? Because the peon has been there with that particular employer for a very long time now. He's been there with him for like 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years. But the fresher has just joined. So the peon, although he's not qualified, but he knows how work is done because he's been there and he's been learning on the job, right? But that doesn't make him qualified enough to do the particular work. He knows, okay, कि मेरे को ये form चाहिए, ये form से मेरे को ये tax file होगा, यहाँ जाने से ये काम होगा. He's that जुगाड़ guy, right? So for every startup, if you're making a founding team, one jugaad guy is very important. It's extremely important. One guy for crunching down the numbers, right? If it is a tech startup, then if any kind of tech involvement is there, a huge bonus if you have a tech co-founder. Huge bonus. I can't even stress on having a tech co-founder in a tech startup. If it's a tech startup, please make sure the first thing you need to have is a tech co-founder. Non-tech co-founder, if non bonus है अगर आपके पास सारे tech co-founders हैं. Because then you are able to, because tech co-founders can learn about non-tech things in a very short span of time, but the reverse is not possible, right? So because every single person has his own core competency skill, it should definitely be focused on what skills that you have and then focus on the kind of work that you have based on your skill. So coming back to the point, candidate, most of the people would choose candidate 1 because of his practical skills, because he knows the kind of work that is being done. And that's where we spotted the gap, because people who were, because for a CA course or a CA company secretaryship course, before the intermediate level, between the intermediate level and the final level, there is this internship that people go through. You must have seen or heard about your CA friends going for articleship. You must have heard this term, articleship. So they go for articleships, right? And that's where they learn things, and that takes about 2.5 years, depending on when you do it, right? But this course, that we thought that what if we launch a particular course where we teach them the basics of the practical curriculum to them in a short span of time, maybe in 1.5 months to 2 months time, like a short crash course, right? Charge them like $2,000 probably, for example, right? And then eventually try and get them placed as well. No guarantee, but because we've got connects in a lot of CA firms and CA companies, try and get them placed based on our references, based on how the kind of firms that we've curated under our banner. So try and get them placed as well as an intern, as a fresher, right? That creates a win-win situation, because not only that person or that student is signing up for the particular course, but is also open for that particular internship or job opportunity. And this became a pure package for us, because we are fixing a problem, because as a startup, as I mentioned earlier as well, it's all about fixing a problem. If you don't find a problem, there's no point starting up, because what are you going to eventually do? Because then you're doing a traditional business. That's it. Then you're not starting up. So when you're starting up, it eventually boils down to you solving a particular problem. If there is a problem, and if you can solve it innovatively, creatively, then that becomes a winning proposition. Some keywords here. One is PMF, which is product market fit. I'm sure you must have heard of it. So product market fit basically means the product that you are launching and the market that's out there has to be a fit between both of them. If there is no fit, chances are your product will fail. Which is why you see that there are 90% of the startups fail. Why? Because the product market fit is not there. Right? Second term is MVP, minimum viable product. In order to test whether your idea is whether idea will work or not, or whether the idea is actually the idea that will fetch you millions and billions of dollars in the long run, one simple way is to launch a minimum viable product. And what do I mean by the MVP? The MVP basically means that if you are launching the most basic version of the product and testing it in front of the customers at a very cheap price. So for example, if your main big idea is to launch, say 100 courses on our platform and provide and get 1,000, 5,000 companies on board and provide and match the companies and the employees, and I take a particular cut in from between as a commission, and that's the major idea. Start validating your idea by launching one course at a very cheap price, just to test the customer sentiment. Our customers very accepting of this particular course. Our customers very accepting of this idea, right? Simple way है कि आप अपने idea को अपने parents को pitch करो. Simple way है, एकदम simple way है. उनको problem statement बताओ पहले. सबसे पहले problem statement ये है. फिर market में कितना बड़ा market है, how big the market is. So if the market size is somewhere around say $2 to $5 billion, it's a fairly huge market. Right? It's a fairly huge market. So make them understand how big the market is, major players kitne sare hai, who your competition actually is, and then how do you plan to capture the market, right? So there are again major terms like TAM, which is total available market, and then scalable market, and then sizable portion market. So there are a bunch of terms, right? But the point I'm trying to make is कि आप अपने parents को pitch करो and tell them the problem ये है. अगर ऐसा product होता, the product that you are trying to build. So अगर ऐसा कोई product होता which would tackle this problem, right? So it's basically like an investor pitch. Shark Tank, I'm sure a lot of you must have watched. So your parents are your sharks, not in the literal sense, but if your parents are your sharks, and then you are the startup who's pitching your startup. So you go to your parents and then tell them that this is the problem statement, this is the product that I'm building to solve this problem. Will you be a customer? Irrespective of the price. अभी price wise के बारे में जाओ ही मत. Price बाद में decide हो जाएगा. Price point अगर कम करना है to get more customers, that could be done. Penetration pricing है, skimming pricing है, जो भी pricing technique लगाना लगा लेना बाद में. पहले just make them understand कि ये problem है, ये solution हम build कर रहा है, which is the product. Will you be a customer? If they feel that yes, अगर ऐसा problem अगर मेरा ये product solve कर रहा है, I will be a customer. Bang on. First validation done. You have your first 2 customers, right? Then launch the MVP and then think about कि हाँ मेरे को पता है कि अब मेरे को MVP launch करना है. Then launch the MVP. Launch the most basic version of the product that will give you customer validation. उससे आपको customer sentiment पता चल जाएगा कि customers क्या बोल रहे हैं, whether the customer actually likes the product or not.